This is Divine Lifestyles with Tara Migalski. What is a divine lifestyle? Passion, purpose, and living in alignment with your truth. Thanks for tuning into Divine Lifestyles, transforming your life with purpose. On this podcast, we share stories of transformation that feed your spirit, mind, and body. I am your host, Tara Migalski, and everyone who's listening, if you dig what you hear, make sure you share this with your friends, you subscribe, rate, and review, because this helps us to really grow our audience. So let's get to today's guest. Today's guest is Tim Ringgold. Thank you so much for being here today. Tim is a board certified music therapist and serial entrepreneur who is just too passionate about having and serving too many people to have one career. So instead, he has tons of different brands. So we'll get into all of that a little bit later, but with his very first brand, Sonic Divinity, that is his music therapy company, Tim helps teens and young adults in recovery reconnect to their best selves, their families, and their higher power. That is absolutely amazing, Tim. I know that that's something that's really close to my heart as well. Can you tell us a little bit how you got involved working with teens in recovery?
Sure. Candidly, I'm in my own recovery journey, and it was February 17th, 2003, when I first took a step into a 12-step room. Scariest day of my life, and about halfway through that meeting, it was one of the most transformational experiences of my life. And my life would not be the same today if it wasn't for taking that step into that room. So along that journey, there have been so many different tools that have helped me on my own life journey. And when I was marching along that journey, I was also a recording artist and a professional musician, and I went back to school to become a board-certified music therapist to use music clinically in different settings. And one of the first places I ended up in my internship was a recovery center doing music therapy with people in recovery. And I saw what an amazing tool music is for people who are trying to replace habits that really don't work for them. And so they have like this black hole of coping, and they don't know what to put in it because everyone said, well, take the drugs out, take the behaviors out. And they're like, okay, now how do I deal with life? What do I replace it with? And so it was my joy to give them their old friend back in a new way. And that's really what music therapy is all about. We're all very tight with music, but we're used to it for education and entertainment.
Entertainment, exactly. Well, also what I love that you do is you use it for pain management, correct? People who are dealing with chronic pain and stress.
Yeah, so patients who have cancer, they might have a chronic illness that causes chronic pain. I had the honor of working in the hospital with patients in oncology, because when we attend to music, when we focus on music, it's so thick. There's so much to music that our entire brain has to focus just on the music, and it literally hits mute on other signals that are trying to vie for attention. And that's what pain is. It's just a signal. It's like a little baby in the nest going, ah, ah, ah. And it's as if the mom's just ignoring it. La, 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 I don't hear you. When the brain is on music, it does not process and perceive pain at the same volume at the same time.
That's really interesting because I was working with a drummer, and he does drum meditations, and he said it was really good to bring in, even if you have a teenager and someone who has behavioral issues, who's really angry, and you can really use the rhythm of music to express yourself fully. So rather than screaming, you can play it out or beat it out on the drums. I thought that was really, really great. Are you using that with any of the kids?
It's one of the cornerstones of our treatment because feelings are, emotions, and emotion, energy in motion. They're moving through our body, and to try to express them or squeeze them out with language is almost like having a toll booth right here. So I got this feeling, but I may not have a word in the English language that matches the feeling. And if I don't have a word, how do I get it out? And how do I connect with another human being who may have had or is having the same experience? So for me, language is like a toll booth or a barrier for emotional expression. And the beauty is that music is also a language, and we communicate with music. Just watch your favorite scary film and hit mute, and the movie won't be scary because the music is communicating fear, communicating suspense, communicating anxiety, right?
That's so true. Leading you up.
Yes, if you took the music track out of any scary movie, the movie would just deflate because the music is communicating all of that subtext that an author may write, but you can't portray in the movie. So we know that music is a language, we know that emotions are a language, and we know that they don't necessarily have an English word. So we play this game called Play It, Don't Say It, where I'll ask them a question.
I like that.
And then they can't use words. They have to play the answer. And then we'll take turns, just like a conversation. And what the rest of the group does is they will use language to reflect back to the person what they heard. And almost spot on all the time, the person who played what they played will say, "You nailed it. That's exactly what I was feeling. That's exactly what I was thinking." And so music is such a effective communication tool in that setting, works better than words sometimes.
Well, I just want to bring up a great accomplishment that you were one of the very first ever Tedxtalks on music therapy. That's amazing, but why do you think that this hasn't been talked about before?
Well, it's a couple of things. It's a very small field. There's only 6,000 board certified music therapists. So just the critical mass of exposure is not happened just because there's not enough people practicing it. The other thing is that music's very subjective and it's qualitative and it's time-based, so it's ephemeral. All of those things go completely against our Western scientific model, and particularly for insurance reimbursement. Because if you can't standardize the process and, punk, kunk, 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 then they don't validate it. And so because music is so subjective, I may have a completely different reaction to a song than you may, based on our preferences, based on our history. So we can't standardize most of music therapy.
Well, bless you for doing this work because I know how important it really is. I experienced it myself. But let's talk a little bit about your coaching company, Empower You Academy. Tell us a little bit more about this.
Okay. Back before I was a music therapist, I was a mock star, which is a rock star that hasn't made it yet.
I love it.
So while I was, logging my hours trying to make it, I had to have that Clark Kent day job that everyone else has to have. And really early on, I figured out that sales and marketing was a smart industry to be in because I got paid more per hour there than anywhere else. So I could buy back my time for my band, spend less time doing my day job, more time doing my band for the same amount of money. So I spent years in sales and marketing but I learned so much about how a business runs and what's vital to a business's survival. Without sales, nothing happens in a business, right? In the music therapy world, and a lot of creative entrepreneurs suffer from the fact that they have a skill that they're passionate about, but they don't know how to sell it. They don't know how to market it. They don't know really how to network. There's all these very subtle social skills that are vital for any business that wants to make a difference. So I just decided, all this experience, I'm going to take it and I'm going to start teaching all of my fellow music therapists, other creative entrepreneurs who have a big heart and a big mission, but they don't have any understanding of these pieces of the pie.
Tim, tell us a little bit more about your latest venture called My Baby's First Song.
This is the thing I'm most excited about. I have 3 babies, or they'll always be my babies, but I have 3 kids. And as a music therapist, when I was in school, we were pregnant with our first, and I learned what are called birth songs, where you write a song for your baby that encapsulates all your hopes, your dreams, your values, what's important to you. and you capture it in a song, and you sing the song to your baby while they're in the womb every night. And then when they're born, because babies' ears work before their eyes do, they recognize something in the room. So they'll recognize mom's voice, they can recognize dad's voice, but melody, they also recognize that as well. So with each of our kids, they were cesarean section because my wife just, for biology reasons. So I recorded these songs for each of my kids, and they were playing in the operating room at the moment of their birth, which gave them a kind of like a safe sound that they were used to, because a C-section is like sleeping in your bed and at 3 a.m. someone reaches in through your roof, rips the roof out of your house and grabs you out of bed and pulls you into the light. It's a very traumatic experience for babies and very unnatural. So it allows them at very first moment of life to decrease stress, decreases the parent stress as well. But it also increases parent-baby bonding during the pregnancy and after. And so I had these 3 amazing stories with each one of my children. And finally I thought, well, maybe more people could benefit from this. So I teamed up with an LA producer, and she and I now are writing custom birth songs for expectant moms and dads. And I gotta tell you, the process is magical because they are in the nest, they're in the womb, they are projecting so much hope and excitement about this baby that's coming. And what we do is we capture all of that and we place it inside of song. And then we give them a fully professionally recorded version of it, but then we give them a karaoke track as well so that they start singing the song to their baby. And that way they have this immediate bond, because throughout history, all moms in all cultures sing to their babies. And so it's a very, very natural, very human experience. And in our American Idol culture, we have really kind of given away our voice. So we, my partner and I are really passionate about giving moms back their voice, giving them permission to sing and feel good about singing to their baby, because it's vital for that connection.
Wow, that is so amazing. When I get pregnant, I'll be calling you.
I can't wait. Take your time, though.
Yeah, I know, right? So we're going to switch it up a little bit and talk a little bit more serious. And I know that you lost your middle child, your daughter. And I would love it if you could share with the audience that story.
Sure. My daughter Bella was born with a very rare fatal skin disease called epidermolysis bullosa, or EB for short. And it's a disease where your skin is missing the protein that hooks it to the body. So it's just like sod when you lay it on the ground and it hasn't grown in yet. It's just kind of floating. So if you grab it or you bump it in the wrong way, it separates, and it either peels right off or it fills with body fluid and turns into these crazy blisters, and it affects the mouth, the entire GI tract, all the skin, and there's no cure. She was undiagnosed at birth. It was awfully intense experience, and spent the first 12 days in the NICU, and then we were just constantly patients. There was a clinical trial in Minnesota to try to find a cure, and Bella was patient 12 in the clinical trial, and it worked. And unfortunately, she passed away from the side effects of the treatment. But what they learned from her going through the trial was that one particular drug doesn't work with kids with EB, even though it works with kids with other diseases that go through transplant at that age. For some reason, EB and this one drug do not mix. So they stopped using that drug after Bella, and now other kids have had a better result. And early on, we knew a couple of things. We knew she had a fatal disease and that we would probably outlive her. That sounds intense. And in our 21st century, we aren't that far removed from when infant mortality and maternal mortality and babies died in childbirth and moms died in childbirth, all the way up until, World War II. That was pretty common. But now with the cesarean section and antibiotics, we've all but eliminated that from our culture. And we've gotten a little bit of amnesia about it. And so what I heard over and over was, There's nothing worse than the loss of your child. No one's supposed to outlive their children. Except the people who said that to me hadn't lost a child. And so I thought, well, they don't know what it's like, and they're just inheriting that as the truth. That doesn't sound like much fun. And I kind of question it given our history. So I'm going to decide for myself, I'm going to choose my response to this situation. And my wife and I, from like day 3 of Bella's journey, said, we don't inherit any other truths about difficult, hard, tragic, any of that. We'll decide for ourselves. So what we did was we just kept making up the most empowering and inspiring reasons why anything that was happening so that we could be more powerful in the face of it. And that really worked for us. It allowed us to show up day after day after day and be just the most present and love-filled and like focused parents that we could. People always said, we don't know how you do it. And we just told them, we have to. You have to find a way for yourself to make it work. And so we just decided, unless you've lost a child, that was your experience. Not all loss is the same. We're going to make up our own meaning about this journey. And so while we're sad that we lost our daughter, we were beyond over the moon grateful to have had her, because the world's gotten better because she was in it. And if you had asked me beforehand, I would love to still have my daughter. Great. But the role that she's played in the world, and it's been phenomenal. And I'm just proud to have been with her as long as I was. And I think we have it so good in our culture. We're just not used to adversity anymore. We just, it's kind of like our adversity muscles are atrophying. So, a little adversity is what actually shows you how strong you really are. You have to have adversity in your life to test your strength. And my wife and I know our relationship is bomb-proof now. Nothing can separate us. And we know that any adversity that we face, we can handle, because most people will tell us that there's nothing worse than the loss of your child. And I don't want to take away from anyone who's lost a child, because every experience is unique. But if you don't like that sentence, don't inherit it. Make up a new one for yourself.
So tell me about the 3 magic pillars that allowed you to endure the 99 days in the ICU and the death of your daughter, and the fact that you never got sick or had a nervous breakdown. Yeah. So there's three things that got me through. Faith, and not so much a religious faith, more faith. When you look it up, the second definition for faith is religious. The first one isn't. Faith is just complete trust or confidence in someone or something. Say that again. So you just broke up. Say that again.
Sure. Faith, the first definition of faith in the dictionary is complete confidence or trust in someone or something. That's it. So every day I practiced faith. I had faith in Bella's doctors. I had faith in her nurses. I had faith in myself, that I was up to the task for caring for her. I had faith in my wife, that she was up to the task. I had faith that there is a divine purpose for things, and I'm so close to the masterpiece, I can't see the whole picture. I'm just seeing one tiny brushstroke. So I have faith that there's a much bigger picture happening than I can perceive, and I have faith that that is a masterpiece. So faith was the first pillar. The second one was gratitude. Every night I could have gone to bed in any shape, physically and mentally, after 14 hours every single day in a 10 by 10 room with my daughter hooked up to Lord knows how many machines. What I chose to do was to end every night on my knees saying a gratitude prayer. And I would just look through the day, what was I grateful for that day? And of course, I would find it because I was looking. That's how our brain works. And that became such a practice that I went to bed every night complete and grateful, even in the midst of all the adversity. And the kicker was the night she died. What a day. It was a pretty intense day. But I went to bed and I got on my knees, because it was habit at this point. And I started my gratitude list. And all the things that I was grateful for, the way everyone was there, the fact that I could go on. But what I couldn't believe was, wait a minute, I'm grateful even though my daughter died. And I realized that you can have gratitude present even in the face of ultimate adversity. So that was number two. And then number three was music. So I had playlists made before Bella went into the ICU, like relaxation playlists that I would listen to over and over, and she would listen to over and over to cue a relaxed response. And I constantly relied on music to help soothe me, help soothe her, help soothe the staff. Because when you would walk into Bella's room, it was so peaceful in there. In the midst of all of these crazy instruments and machines and things that were going on, the vibe was still really peaceful. And the thing that I used, the number one tool I used to create that vibe was music every single day. So, and then lastly, the thing about music, going back to the birth song, I would sing her song to her before any kind of procedure so that she'd feel comfortable. And the moment that she died, when her heart rate went to 0, her birth song came on the iPod all by itself.
Oh.
It was 45 minutes into the middle of the playlist when it came on. And as I was taking all of the tubes out of her body, I sang her back to heaven. And and I got to tell you, the first time when she was born, I orchestrated that moment. I said to the anesthesiologist, play that song right now. But when she died, for me, that was God being the DJ. Like, it's just like, you couldn't script this. You couldn't
I
make
love it.
up. And I had the experience of singing her back to heaven, and no one can ever take that away from me as long as I live.
Oh my
Faith,
gosh.
gratitude, music.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Thank you.
God being the DJ. That is amazing. That is amazing. So I know that you also talked about the 4-step formula that you created with your wife to deal with your daughter's death. If you want to just, I know you talked about a few things earlier, but I love how you have all these formulas. I think they're really amazing.
Thank you.
I think they're really great so people who are listening can implement them into their lives.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We wanted, after we went through this crazy experience and came out relatively unscathed, we wanted to kind of make it repeatable for others so that others could benefit from our journey. And so when I was talking earlier about don't inherit what other people say, I was starting to hint on this formula. And the formula, very quickly, it's called VERO, VERO, but it's an equation. It's V equals vision. And when you add vision, it's V plus E plus R equals O. So vision plus events plus response equals outcome. I first heard E plus R equals O from John C. Maxwell, the leadership expert. And then I saw, after I went through this experience, I saw Jack Canfield teach that same equation at an event that we were both speaking at. And I saw it on a slide. And afterwards, I went up to Jack and I said, Jack, I've been living it, but I'd never articulated it quite the way you just did. But for me, there was a piece of it that was missing because events plus response equals outcomes, very reactive. And for me, I live a created life. I'm very conscious. Everything in my life, I put there. I don't inherit or any external situation. I create my reality. And I believe many of us do the same. And so, and that all starts with vision. So you visualize something into existence, and then you get out into the world and you go to make it happen. And the world gives you feedback as to whether or not you were on track with how much time and effort and energy and resources it was going to take. When you go to implement, you get feedback, and those are the events of life. And the key to life is, when that happens, you have a choice. After any event, you get to choose your response to the event. And it's that response that ultimately determines the outcome. So, and it's like a wheel, it keeps coming back. So let's say you have a vision to do something. Then you get into the life, and then life happens. And you're like, oh, well, how you respond determines whether or not you eventually turn the vision into an outcome. And then again, based on that feedback, you create a new vision again. Okay, so then I'm going to do this. And then life comes around and says, oh, it's going to take a little more work. And then you have to react. And then again, that's going to influence the outcome. And it just keeps going around and around. And the most important part of that is that if you can remember that when you're in any given moment, you can hit pause. And you can reflect on the moment, and you can choose your response to the moment. Because you are a conscious being. You are not a stimulus response machine or animal. You have consciousness. Use that gift. It is special in the world.
So tell us a little bit about the 7 pillars of success that you have discovered and you now teach to your clients.
All right. So going back to the rockstar days, to survive in the field of sales, you deal with no, right? All the time. And so you got to develop some tools and some skills. And there are some common principles that successful salespeople and leave behind or utilize. And they leave clues. Like if you investigate or interview successful people, you'll hear over and over certain principles that keep coming up. And many people have written about this in many different ways, but success leaves clues. And so as I looked through my own journey, I looked at, okay, there's lots of different skill sets out there. Like what would be 7 like mindset, like internal tools and ways to think that would make the biggest difference if anybody wanted to be successful. So I drafted and created this formula or this process, and it's values, goals, time management, personality profiles, networking, negotiating, and work-life balance. And and it's simple, like I just tell people, like if you walk through each one of these and you learn about your values, which is your own compass as to where you internally feel like you should be spending the greatest amount of the activity of your life. If you take the time to articulate that, you understand the process of writing bomb-proof goals and how to actually implement them, the order of operations to goal, not just goal setting, but actually goal fulfilling. Most people don't teach the second half of goal setting. They just say, there's the goal, but good luck. So you got to learn both sides of that. You got to learn that there's no such thing as time management. There's just behavior management. And so, because we all have the same amount of time, it's not time. And so if you don't have that distinction, but you don't have your values, you don't know where to invest the time you have. Personality profiles, you have to know yourself. You have to know what you're good at. You have to know what you're not good at. And you have to know who the people in your life, what their strengths and what their, we'll call it weaknesses for lack of a better word, are, so that you're partnering and creating team with the right mix, because it doesn't do any good to team up with someone who has the same strengths as you.
Yep.
So you should always be partnering or hiring your weaknesses. Don't spend any time developing them. Someone else already does it better than you with less effort and more joy anyway. So why bother? Just rock your strengths. Again, too many people spend too much time on self-help, which to me is just weakness development rather than rocking their strengths. And then networking. Oh my God, people have networking all wrong. I spend so many weeks teaching networking alone because it's another one of those things. Immediately they think of this transaction. I'm going to give you a business card. You're going to give me a business card. It's not a transaction. You're not selling to anybody. You're selling through people. And it's this tiny little distinction that changes networking for people. Makes them very powerful. So again, if you don't know it, you're afraid of it because it sounds like that smarmy thing. You go to a meeting and you hand out cards and you get cards. It's not like that at all. The people who rock networking, it's the most juicy love fest out there in the business world.
I love that.
That's how networking it really can be. And then negotiating, like where did you learn how to negotiate? There are skills to negotiating. If you don't know how, you're not confident. So you shy away from all of the opportunities to really move yourself, your business, whatever forward, because at the moment of growth, negotiation's required. So if you're not confident, and you don't understand just the nature of it and how you could have win-win all the time, you may shy away from opportunity and growth because you're afraid to step up to that moment, that awkward moment of negotiating, because you have it in your head, again, that it's a win-lose. It doesn't have to be that way. But then last and most important is understanding how to keep yourself balanced. And I will call BS on anybody who says there's no such thing, because I live it. I know there's balance. I've watched people unbalanced. I watch them get sick. I watch them burn out. Tell me that sickness and burnout is not from unbalance.
Dis-ease.
Dis-ease.
The word dis-ease. You're not in harmony. You're not balanced.
That's it. So I think people don't really deep dive into the nuances of what it means. It's not quantity. It's not that you have to spend equal amounts of time in all the areas of your life. That would be ludicrous. But there's a very subtle thing that takes it full circle, that when you know what your values are, then you know how to prioritize your time, effort, energy, and resources. And balance occurs when your activity is in alignment with your values.
Wow, you hit it on the head right there. I just want to share this quick little story on that note. This morning, I had a very important interview. This was my third interview to speak in front of 2,000 people for about depression and suicide. And I'm not going to say the name of the organization just yet, but I have to tell you, it was so in alignment with me and my core values and everything. I said, this is mine. This is mine. It was so clear to me that I saw myself already speaking. I already saw myself in October on the stage. I already saw faces in the audience. And
nice.
I have to say, that was probably one of the first times that I've been able to see it immediately so clearly. And that's because I have my core values so clear. And they're in alignment with my life's work. Took me forever to get here, but the moment I'm just like, boom, it was like laser focus. It was so awesome.
Nice.
And then to have this amazing interview with you, and then you know what I'm going to do after this? I'm going to go enjoy my weekend, because I feel so aligned that I feel like it's all just going to flow. I don't have to do much more. I don't have to drive up that stream anymore, drowning. So I just want to say, it really is, it works. And it's honestly is so important to understand these principles, because when you get them and you're clear, your world just completely changes.
Yep.
So what is the most important tip that you can give to parents who are listening who might be grieving a loss of a child?
Wow. What a great question. Whew. Your grief is real. Honor it. It's a reflection of the depth of your love. And it doesn't automatically pass with time. The more you resist it, the longer it will persist. And I know that's a cliche, but it is real. So feel the feelings. They're valuable, and they're what give you the understanding that joy really is joy. Because if you've never felt pain, then joy gets taken for granted. So feel those feelings and know that the more you lean into your feelings, the faster they'll dissipate. And particularly around memories. Memories often carry a really strong emotional charge early on in grief. And if you don't experience the grief, those feelings, that emotional charge stays attached to the memories. But the more you feel your grief and you go through it, after a while, those feelings dissipate and the memories remain. And I can tell you, honest to goodness truth, it's 5 years since my daughter's died, or since her death. And the memories don't have the pain they used to have because I leaned in to the grief. Lean into your grief. It's healthy. It's natural. It's normal. And it can be a beautiful journey. And sadness can be just as beautiful as happiness if you permit it to.
Wonderful. Where should our listeners go to learn more about you, your coaching programs, and to possibly book you for any speaking engagements?
Well, there's a couple of places online you can find me. You can always go to timringgold.com, which is TIMRINGGOLD.com. And then you can also find out about my baby's first song at mybabiesfirstsong.com. That's a great place to find that. And then if you're really interested in coaching, my coaching company is called Empower You Academy. So you can just go to empoweruacademy.com and find me there.
Thank you so much for taking the time today to share your immensely powerful story.
Thanks, Tara. Thanks so much for having me and sharing me with your listeners. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in, and make sure you subscribe to this channel to get your weekly fix for all you spiritual gangsters. Any questions or comments, go to my site at taramagalski.com. Drop me a note. I'd love to hear from you. And stay tuned for next week. I got the good stuff.